Okay, let's talk about AI. Right now, literally trillions of dollars are pouring into this technology, all with the promise of a future that's more productive than we can even wrap our heads around. But here's the big question. Is this a real revolution, the next internet, or are we staring down the barrel of the biggest speculative bubble in modern history? That's exactly what we're going to dig into.
So let's kick things off with the ultimate skeptic, Michael Burry. Now, you probably remember him. He's the guy who famously saw the 2008 financial crisis coming when no one else did. Well, now he's looking at this AI boom, and he's asking a pretty terrifying question. Is all this money, all this investment, just a massive, faith-based mistake?
But then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got this radical optimism. Jack Clark, who co-founded the major AI lab Anthropic, he has this incredibly simple but powerful take. The AI we have right now, this is the worst it's ever going to be. Think about that. He's saying the technology is getting better so ridiculously fast that what blows our minds today will look like a flip phone in just a couple of years. So, to make sense of this whole thing, we're going to follow a few key thinkers. We've got Burry, our skeptic, who's basically screaming bubble from the rooftops. Then you've got Clark, the insider, who's on the front lines and sees nothing but accelerating progress. In the middle, there's Dwarkesh Patel, our synthesizer, who's trying to make sense of all the conflicting signals. And rounding it out is Patrick McKenzie, the moderator, who keeps us focused on the big question: what does any of this actually mean for the real world?
All right, so how did we even get here? How did we get to a point where a massive bubble and a world-changing revolution seem like equally possible outcomes? Well, the story of AI's recent jump forward is just full of surprises that, frankly, caught almost everyone completely off guard.
If you look back just a few years to 2017, the big idea in AI was to build it from a blank slate, kind of like teaching a baby how to play a super complex video game. But then a totally different idea just took over. A new architecture called the transformer let us train models on, well, basically the entire internet. And that led to this simple, powerful realization called the scaling laws. The bigger the model and the more data you throw at it, the smarter it gets. And then, bam, November 2022. A pretty simple chatbot called ChatGPT gets released, and it basically lit the fuse on the investment firestorm we're living through today. And here is where Michael Burry sees a huge red flag. The biggest shock wasn't just the tech itself, it was how the market handled it. Get this, Google, the company that invented the core transformer technology, somehow fumbled its massive lead. Now, they're in a mad dash to catch up to a bunch of startups. And for a skeptic like Burry, that kind of mess just screams bubble. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the economic debate. We have this technology that is, let's be honest, undeniably powerful. But is it actually making businesses more productive? And maybe even more important, is it making them more profitable? This, my friends, is where things get really, really interesting. So here it is, the billion-dollar question. Do these incredible AI tools actually make us better and faster at our jobs? You'd think the answer would be a resounding yes, but honestly, the data we have is all over the place. It's surprisingly messy.
So let's start with the good news, the sunny side. A survey inside Anthropic, one of the top AI labs, found that their own developers, using their own AI tool, Claude, reported a massive 50% boost in productivity. 50%? I mean, that sounds like an absolute game changer, right? Case closed. But not so fast. A totally different, more objective study from a group called Metri looked at a specific coding task. And what they found was kind of shocking. When developers use these AI tools, their measured productivity actually went down by 20%. So wait, how can both of these things possibly be true? Well, Dwarkesh Patel breaks this down perfectly. It turns out that study that found the 20% drop, it actually predicted this would happen. What feels super productive to a programmer, like poof, getting a bunch of code in an instant, might be the exact opposite of what's truly productive. Because, true productivity means writing code that's clean, that's secure, and that someone else can actually understand and maintain later on.
And this leads us to Michael Burry's big economic argument. And he uses this brilliant analogy from Warren Buffett. Imagine two department stores across the street from each other. One of them spends a ton of money to install a fancy new escalator. Well, what does the other store have to do? They have to install one too, just to keep up. So in the end, they both spent a fortune, but neither one has any real advantage over the other. Burry's betting that's exactly how this whole AI thing is going to play out. For Burry, it all comes down to one metric, what he calls the measure to beat all measures. It's called return on invested capital, or ROIC. It's actually pretty simple. It just asks, for every single dollar a company invests in its business, how much profit does it get back? For him, this number tells you the whole story.
So here's Burry's whole argument in a nutshell. The big tech companies, Google, Microsoft, they used to be these beautiful, high-margin software businesses. But now, to compete in AI, they're being forced to spend billions and billions on data centers and computer chips. They're becoming hardware companies. And as all that spending goes through the roof, their precious ROIC is about to go right through the floor. Which brings us to the question that's on pretty much everyone's mind. If this AI is so powerful, so smart, why do we all still have jobs? It's honestly one of the biggest puzzles of this whole AI era. I mean, just think about it for a second. We've got AI that can pass the Turing test, it can solve complex university-level math problems, it can write really good code. If you had just described these capabilities to someone back in 2017, they would have predicted, mass unemployment for office workers by now. And yet, here we are. The job market has barely even flinched. What is going on?
Well, the best answer seems to be something experts are calling the jagged frontier of AI. It's this weird thing where these models can do something brilliant, like write a beautiful poem, but then make a mistake a 5-year-old wouldn't, like not being able to count the words in that same poem. Their intelligence is spiky. And it turns out, automating one specific task is a million miles away from automating an entire job.
So, with everything being so confusing right now, what happens next? Well, our experts see two completely different futures unfolding, and each one comes with its own absolutely massive risk. So on one side, you have the economic risk that Burry is warning about, a massive bust. Trillions of dollars in data centers become what they call stranded assets, basically just expensive junk that never made a dime. But on the other side is the technological risk that keeps someone like Jack Clark up at night. What if we accidentally create an AI that can improve itself, sparking an intelligence explosion that just spirals completely beyond our control?
And Burry's warning comes with a real sense of urgency. He thinks we're not at the beginning of this AI boom. He thinks we're right in the middle of it. The initial hype and stock market fun is over, and now we're about to enter the phase where the eye-watering costs and the lack of real profits start showing up on the balance sheets. The bill, he says, is coming due.
And he's not just talking in generalities. He's pointing fingers. He looks at NVIDIA, the king of AI chips, and says their dominance won't last, that more efficient chips will replace them. Then he looks at a company like Palantir and claims they have basically no real earnings once you subtract the huge stock packages they give their employees. But let's end with one last kind of mind-bending idea, this one from Dwarkesh Patel. He points out that, with populations aging all over the developed world, our economies were basically heading for a demographic cliff. And isn't it just a little funny that this incredibly powerful technology just happened to show up right when we needed something, anything, to save us? So which is it? Is AI our economic savior? Is it a historic once-in-a-generation bubble? Or is it something else entirely? Something far stranger than we can even imagine right now? The only thing we know for sure is that this story is being written as we speak, and what happens in the next chapter is truly anyone's guess.